This episode is brought to you by 6XD Gearbox. More on them later.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Minnoxide podcast. I'm your host, Harris, a.k.a. Minnoxide, man of many automotive aspirations, and I'm here with my Ford-loving co-host, Dan.
That's right.
Mr. Gunnock Garage for day 2 of PRI. This is our 4th one today. We are just grinding at it today.
Yeah.
But we have a special returning guest with Britt Casey Jr., who brought a friend, Brad Kettler, which, first of all, nice to meet you in person finally. These
Same
conversations leading up have been fun.
Same here. Yeah.
This is the first podcast I watched, not one, but 2 documentaries in a row for.
Okay.
So I'm very excited to say the least. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself, how we got to where we are at today, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Well, how far back we going? We going way back?
As far back as you want to.
Well, okay.
When did cars enter the photo?
Oh, what's that?
When did cars enter the picture?
They were always there.
Okay.
They were always there from the beginning. My my dad was a gearhead, and he had a really healthy love of cars and motorcycles. And both of my grandfathers were kind of amateur restoration guys and so forth. And my one grandfather on my dad's side, he was a recovering alcoholic, and the car hobby was his outlet to stay sober and so forth. And so as his grandson, we did all kinds of projects together, and a lot of like early, not brass era cars, but like 30s and 40s cars, which accompanying him to all kinds of specialty shops all over Indiana and, around Indy here, people that were engine builders, gearbox builders, going to these different places and being exposed to all that stuff at a really early age was just fascinating for me. I loved it. And, I got to meet people that were, offy engine builders, from the 50s and the 60s, and guys that were aluminum panel beaters that, flame welded aluminum bodies and made Indy cars out of them that way and stuff. And really was lucky to get exposed to that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And it really lit my imagination up, and it just kept going from there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So take me up into like where did you end up going to college? Did you end up what did you end up? How did your career begin?
Well, my parents. I was born in Lafayette, Indiana, and my dad was a graduate student at Purdue there. And he started out as an engineering student, and he ended up an English professor. So that's a little bit of a turn, a little bit of a turn the other way. But like I said, he had a really healthy, love of cars and motorcycles and stuff. And we consumed what media was available back then, occasional speed sport news, definitely Road and Track magazine, Cycle World, anything Peter Egan wrote, stuff like that, was a big factor. And we moved to Oxford, Ohio, where Miami University is, when I was very little. And from there, I just, I wanted to, the cars fascinated me. They always did. And from the time I could drive, I had a job in a gas station, and never did pump any gas, because once they figured out I could fix stuff, they had me back in the workshop exploiting my low wages and ability to charge a lot of money for what I was doing. And I just ended up, working in gas station workshops and so forth. I did some ag work as a kid, which exposes you to all kinds of different crazy machines and diesels and all kinds of ways things are done. And then I ended up in a Chevrolet dealership. My first, this is a way back for a lot of you people. You may not even remember. I did Vega engine recall.
Oh, okay.
So if you guys remember the Vega, they at one point in time there was a class action lawsuit, and they all got new engines put in them, regardless of what kind of a piece of junk the car was. If you could drag it to the dealer, that we'd put a new motor in it for you. I mean, most of the cars, they didn't have floorboards left, and all that, but they drag them in there. And my $12 flat rate hour job was to put new engines in these old junky Vegas and satisfy the recall and so forth. And that's how I really got started at the GM garage. And I took some training on the Grand National, on the Buick Grand National, and I was one of the few young men in the dealership chain that was like not most of the old guys at that point in time were not on board with learning about fuel injection and electronics and so on. They were just not. So I became the de facto kid that they sent to the trainings because somebody had to go.
Sure.
And so I took some training on the Grand National and on the sequential fuel injection system for the 3800 Buick. You know, when that was a new thing. I mean, when cars did not have fuel injection
Right,
on them. Yeah. And
It was the fastest production car at the time, I believe.
it was.
Yeah.
It
Went
blew
from Vegas to Grand Nationals.
it,
That's a good jump.
it blew. Well, once I got my foot in the door at the dealership, they realized I could do it.
Right.
And they kept me pretty busy. I got most of the ugly jobs. I got the school buses and the oil delivery trucks and the stuff that you had to work on outside sometimes.
Ooh.
That was the stuff I got to do. But I kept plugging away at it, and the environment that I was in at this dealership in Oxford, I was in an annex building with an old kind of hot rod guy named Ronnie Cason, and Ronnie's still alive. And because we were in an annex building, we had some extra space. So I had a flat stall where I could work on my stuff.
Okay.
That was, just given to me basically that I could use. And I built with Ronnie's help and so forth, built a Chevy 2 drag car.
Okay.
And, early Nova, little bodied Nova.
Yep.
And did subframe connectors and stuff in it, and built a series of different little 327 based different recipe engines and gearboxes and so forth, and everything dyno tuned by the butt, electronics anywhere, and I was pretty successful with it. I was pretty successful driving the car, and
well, the Chevy 2 was kind of like where the Fox body is known as a great chassis, right? The
Yep.
Chevy 2, I believe, was the same.
it was.
Yeah.
It was a little light car, had little skinny doors.
Yep.
And they were pretty well constructed. They were pretty stiff. And if, at 300 horsepower or so, they didn't have enough power to really twist them too hard. But the chassis had enough rotation and enough flex in it that they would bite pretty hard. And, once you figured that out with them, and my big experiment, the thing I was fascinated with back then was how to shift it faster and how to shift it wide open and so forth. So I built a whole series of different Saginaw transmissions with the synchronizers ground off, and it worked on them to where I could flat shift the thing, basically where I could put it right where it would float the valves, and on the initiation of the valve float, I could shift it. And when it was pulling hard, I get it, get my hand full of. I had a Vertigate shifter. That was one of my most expensive pieces in the car, because I had a Hurst Vertigate shifter, which is a 3-speed shifter.
Yeah.
And I got where with the synchros kind of done that way, treated that way, where I could load it up and really pull on the lever. And when it was pulling hard, when it got to the valve float area, you could pull it through. It would shift. And it was like a very primitive kind of stutter, I mean, it was basically a misfire based on over revving the thing.
Yeah.
But it worked. I mean, it worked. And
You basically had like an early shift cut.
Yeah. And with a little practice, you could really hit it right.
Yeah.
And it was fast. I mean, it was a good way to do it. You could shift it and leave the throttle wide open, when you pulled it through, and it worked pretty well. I mean, you had to be committed to it, and you had to, your bicep had to be tense. I mean, you had to have a lot of load on the lever, and when it unloaded the drivetrain, you could shift it. And so anyway, I got pretty good at it. I made a lot of runs in that car, and got pretty fast with it, and ended up winning a little Southeast regional matchup championship kind of thing. And my dad and my uncle were there, and a guy walked up to the was on the trailer. He wanted to buy the car, and I asked, I looked at my dad, and he said, he smoked a pipe and stuff, and he packed his pipe, and he said, unload it. Because we probably had $3,500 in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe a little bit more. All the engines were built out of, I bought an interchange thing. It was a McAllister's Guide to small blocks, and it had all the different interchange possibilities, and scoured junkyards and stuff for the right cylinder heads and the right camshafts and the right stuff. There was no Summit racing, and I don't want to sound like
Right.
an old fart to say, oh, back in my day we couldn't do all this stuff, but we didn't have any of those things. And so you really had to search for kind of the resources to put some of these combinations together, and a few of them were quite potent. They were good. And I still know that a Kingswood station wagon with a 400 small block in it has a steel crank in it. Then none of the other ones do, but that one does. And it's got 3 freeze plugs in it, and that's a 400 with a steel crank. And so this is the kind of gold you'd find in the junkyard. It'd be like, oh yeah, we need that part. And so
I miss those days of the junkyard. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, I do too. And
I would go with my dad, and the one I used to go to, you could drive into still, right? You go in there, and then it got to where now you got to walk back, and now it's all you show up at a desk and they pull the part for you.
They pull it for you. Yeah. Well, a lot of stuff walked out in the toolbox. We all know that.
Agree.
There was plenty of little window crank handles and clips and hardware and stuff that never got bought back in those days. And that was part of the whole program. Yeah. But I love junkyards. I still do.
I could spend all day there. The random things you'd find under seats and things. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. And Bizignante, his junkyard gold thing, there was some things on the not Speed channel, I forget what channel, Mav TV maybe.
Okay.
That he did some vignettes of some different junkyards out west, and would walk them and like pick out the weird things that are in here, and then talk about what they were and so forth. And I found it fascinating. I've always wanted to go to that DVAP, that Desert Valley Auto Parts, the one that's like 2,000 acres.
Oh,
it's
really?
It's out in like Nevada, Southern California, out there somewhere. The Freiberger and those guys are always like talking about the DVAP Auto Parts, and I've never been to it, but I always wanted to go there and just to see it, because I think junkyards are fascinating.
Oh, absolutely,
they really are. And
That's an awesome bucket list item.
Yeah. So I built a lot of my early cars based on that, because one, I didn't have any money, and two, that was kind of what was available. I mean, Jegs in Columbus really emerged as like a speed shop that you could reliably get stuff through. I mean, this is like we're well into the 80s, in the late 80s before that happened. Before that, you were just kind of on your own, figuring it out. And so that was a lot of it. So then I left the GM garage and I became a Mercedes-Benz mechanic. And I worked on Mercedes-Benz. I was a line mechanic at a dealership in Cincinnati, there in Fairfield, Ohio. And I really loved that. And I loved German cars. And it really got me going on German car branding stuff. And I worked on a lot of the used cars, the Porsches and so forth. And that really got me going, really appreciating what those cars were. And that opened a lot of doors. The Porsche thing, that car company is single-handedly responsible for like a lot of motorsport people, come from a background, racing and building those things, and myself as well, So there, this was right when we were starting to get some technology in cars. We were getting ABS brakes. We were getting, really decent fuel injection systems and stuff, and cars that had some pretty decent performance. And I remember going to the tech school on the 300E, and they explained to us that the top speed on the thing was 147 miles an hour, which we all called bullshit on, but they would go 147 miles an hour. I mean, that's the first thing. The first one that showed up at the dealership was like me and the service manager were down Route 4 outside Fairfield to see if this thing would go north of 145 miles an hour, and it would. Wow. And we were like, respect, we were really getting somewhere.
This
now.
is something.
Yeah, it really was. It really was something. I mean, it was mind-bendingly fast, because you got to remember, the cars before that era were all these popcorn popper diesels that had 65 horsepower, and they go 82 miles an hour on the wood. So Mercedes wasn't known as a performance brand in that respect, and it was just starting to emerge that way with some of the alloy V8s and some of the stuff that later on turned out to be quite cool. But the 300E, when I took the tech school, and then I came back and I said, I don't think this car will do this, and it would. They would. they could do it. So anyway, that was a big jumping off point. And from there, I met some people that got me into building road racing cars. And, the Smith books, Prepare to Win, Tune to Win, those things, studying those books and reading about that. And then later reading On Track magazine, looking forward to that coming every month so I could catch up on what's going on in all the motor racing scenes and so forth. And
this is around what time period at this point?
Mid-'80s.
Mid-'80s
like
still?
1985,
Okay.
86, something like that. And then in 87, I started a job at Essex Racing in Cumming, Georgia.
Okay.
Working for Michael Gouet. And it was off and running after that because he had a lot of programs. He had, club racing programs, rental programs, prototype stuff. It was, C2 prototypes, like they call them, sponsored by Camel, so they call them Camel Light cars.
What was it called?
They were Camel Light cars.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
Because they were sponsored by, tobacco money and all that stuff. And but it was a healthy time in IMSA and around Atlanta there. There was a lot of prep shops. Jim Downing had a prep shop there. And he was famous for Mazda and particularly rotaries and a lot of rotary cars. And Phil Creighton had a prep shop there. There was composite people there. Spice Engineering was there, which later had a really very, very good road racing chassis, prototype chassis that they sold. So there was a lot happening in that area. There was a big buzz. And there was NASCAR teams. The Elliots were there. There was some other things. So it was a good place to be if you're interested in the racing world. And I started there, and I, didn't look back for a long time. I worked for a couple different companies there. I worked for Phil Creighton for a while there. A man named John Eversley, who's Ryan Eversley's dad. He had a big restoration shop in Atlanta there, and I worked for him for a long time. I got exposed to a lot of really, really high-end Porsche stuff, 962s, 935s, and got a chance to learn a lot of that craft from some real gurus. And Franz Blom was there. He was a famous engine builder that built a lot of 962 engines and so forth. And he was there in Tucker, Georgia. So there was a lot to look at and be part of. And it was, as a young man, it was a cool spot to be. When you went to work every day,
everything just coming at you.
Yeah, you went to work every day. You didn't know really what you were going to see.
Okay.
John's shop was on a little dead-end street in Tucker, Georgia there. And it was also at the end of that dead-end street was FAF Ferrari, which was a very big, active Ferrari dealer at the time. And then there was another man there, I don't remember the name, but he did Lamborghinis and Porsches and did all kinds of things. So the little dead-end street was really a rollout test track for all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, you on your way to lunch, you don't know what you might see coming down the road the other way from you.
Keep in mind, this is like late 80s, early 90s IMSA, which is those cars were cool.
Peak.
Those things were flying. Like
way
faster top speeds than what we have now. I mean,
well, the rules weren't there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could come up with it, you could do it.
When you get to a certain level in a build, whether it be drag racing or drifting, road course, or just a badass street car, you'll have to upgrade your transmission. And when we're talking sequential transmissions, there's no one on the planet with a stronger gearbox than 6XD. And the proof is in the pudding here, folks. Half the FD field is rocking a 6XD, and even 3,000 horsepower Vipers have not been able to tame the best that 6XD has to offer. So if you're ready to take it up a notch, go to 6xdgearbox.com, and when contacting them to place an order, use code Minnoxide5, or reach out via socials to figure out how one of the baddest transmissions on the planet could fit in your build. Let's get back to the show.
And there was IMSA was fairly powerful at that point of view. It was powerful enough that when you look at even like the 962, everybody talks about the 962 Porsche, but there was an American only, IMSA only version of that car, one whole separated version of that car that maintained the air-cooled 2-valve engine and so forth, way past when all the Group C cars were water-cooled and 4-valve and all that stuff, just, to be eligible for the American rules, it had to have a stock block style motor in it with a 2-valve engine and maintain the air cooling and stuff on it. Some really great stuff, but like, the sanctioning bodies at that period is very much kind of like what they still do today. They couldn't get together on the rules across the ocean. So,
sure,
there wasn't a lot of, if you raced in Europe, you raced this kind of car, and you raced in America, you raced this kind of car. Whereas there's been a lot of energy put towards racing the same car, and for a little while with like the American Le Mans series and some of the other stuff, the cars were quite close. They were still, they had different BOP and so forth, but they were still very similar cars. And this is the right idea, because this stuff is too expensive and too bespoke to have two completely different models of racing car when your whole business is based on selling 6 of them, or 8 of them or something like that. I mean, it makes no sense. And yet the segregation stayed, for a long period of time. And so it's, racing the Audi, racing the R8, we were able to race the same car overseas as we were here in the United States.
Okay.
But a substantially different specification, substantially different, restrictor package, substantially different fuel cell size, different aerodynamics, different wing widths, different bits and pieces. So yeah, it was the same car, but you had to have a huge package to convert it from one to the other. It wasn't like it was the same car.
Sure.
There was still a lot of separation there, and for no real reason. So anyway,
outside of just rules,
outside just the way the rules fell. And at the you're jumping around here a little bit, but the Audi, it had a completely different power package and aerodynamic package on it in Europe than it did in the United States in 2004 and 2005, requiring us to have a completely separate series of bodywork and wings and fitted parts and engine pieces and all kinds of things that were not relatable.
Sure. Well, that's all very cheap to do, right?
Yeah. It's really inexpensive. It doesn't take up much room in the truck.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Different.
Every single thing on those cars requires a new mold design to create, which is just think about that. Like, as a team.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, working for Mr. Mirage, God bless him, one of the very greatest, men I've ever worked for and or even known. I mean, just a fantastic guy. And he allowed us the level of preparation that gave us very strong opportunities. And, when we would go to Le Mans, we would go with 8 sets of bodywork. So we had a set on the car and 3 in the background.
Yep.
Right. Or 2.75, as close as we could get to 3 complete sets of things. And this takes a lot of orchestration to keep all of this stuff in the same specification, to have all the weights recorded, to have all the graphics matched up, and have them where they'll interconnect, where you can change the parts at random with each other.
I guess I never even thought about that. The graphics alone. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, we would
and the different weight variations between different sets of bodywork.
Sure.
It's a big effect at 220. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right?
Sure. Well, that and legality wise, if you qualify with your best stuff on, let's say, and the cars, you're ballast in the car and you're targeting 902 kilo or 902 and a half, which we would only, we would have the cars a little bit over minimum weight, but as little as possible, as little as safely possible. And, say, for example, you have an accident or something happens and requires you to change a couple of pieces of bodywork together. You got to know what all those weights are. So your combination is not $899. So your combination's not $899 when you get to the end of the get to the end and you get on the scales and get DQ'd for a kilo, which has happened. Not to us. It only happened to us once, but it does happen. And it's just a lot to keep track of. And we would, especially speaking about Le Mans preparation, we would, the noses on the car would all be, first off, Mr. Mirage was a fanatic about the appearance of the cars. So we didn't wrap anything. Everything was painted.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he really didn't even care. It wasn't even about the weight or anything else. It was the way it looked. And to him, no wrap at that point in time could match what well done paint was. So we painted the noses every 2 to 3 events. So if a nose got used more than one event, it got stripped and painted.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so that, and you know, he explained to me when we talked about the economics of this, he said, Bradsky, he called me Bradsky. He said, that's why we employ painters. So I want them painted. So if they're chipped or whatever, you know, to a point where it didn't meet his standard, they were stripped and painted. And
wow.
So, and when we would do the Le Mans preparation, we would seal the noses, seal the carbon, add all of the graphics over the sealer, back mask all the graphics, paint the noses around the graphics, and then clear coat the entire thing so that the graphics were integrated into the finish. There's no bump, there's no ridge, there's no anything. And it was worth 3 or 4K top speed. Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, it was worth it. I mean, it was 120 hours per nose of work to get them like that. But that, you know, if it gives you 4K on the Mulsanne, that 120 hours seems like a small price to pay.
Right.
Sure.
To get that out of it. And so when we would go with 8 noses prepared at that level, I mean, you just imagine the cubic hours that went into preparing all this stuff. And it was a great time. He was a great guy to work for, and he just wanted to make sure that the time and the resources that we put into the cars we got something back from it. It wasn't just, you know, we could spend the money we needed to spend, but we needed to show some kind of result.
Right.
Yeah. Don't waste it. You know, we need to see something back. If we go on the shaker and spend a couple days on the shaker rig, you know, we want to see a result, you know.
Well, the guy we had on just before this was talking about, because they have an engine program they do for, what was it, IMSA and Trans Am. And he said the amount of engineering and money they'll spend to get 2 or 3 horsepower which doesn't seem like a lot, but it makes a big difference in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing, I taught a little bit in the motorsport technical school when it started here in Indianapolis, and we'll probably do some more of that. And in the process of taking some of the students on some field trips, we were able to visit some IndyCar shops.
Oh, cool.
And X-Track and some other vendors, and looking at, you know, in the modern IndyCar world, you know, what's a substantive difference between 2 cars on the grid. It might be 0.25%, 0.5% in efficiency someplace. That's it. That's what they're looking for. Drag in the wheel bearings, how little gear oil you can run in the gearbox, you know, how far loose you can make the tolerances on something to free it up without running into failure point. And that's where they're focusing so much. You know, you guys coming from the drag racing world and so forth, that world ebbs and flows in fairly big swings on horsepower and so forth. But in IndyCar with a spec chassis and only 2 specs of engine to go by, there's not much headroom in there to find things.
Right.
And, you know, so they're really focusing on, you know, efficiency in the dampers and drag in the gearbox, drag in the uprights, you know, parasitic drag body wise and so forth. These are all the little nuances that actually give the cars some competitive difference between them. But I'm telling you now, in today's world, it's minimal. There's just not much that separates them. So it's cool. But you know, you have to feel like that the imagination and the spirit of innovation and imagination is quite damped down in that world, because there's just not much you can do, you know, with those cars. You have to be so, you know, on the spec in order to be legal.
So let's go back a minute here. So then how did you end up at Audi in the first place?
You don't use a computer from 2006, so why should your build? Why put thousands of dollars into your project only to be limited by a stock ECU that's over a decade old? Even some OEM calibrators are impressed with modern day functionality of standalones featuring advanced launch control, traction control, and of course for those who aren't fans of unscheduled rapid disassembly, engine protection features. Go to tunedbysean.com, look at some of the plug-and-play kits available and various Haltech goodies you can save 5% on using code Minnoxide. Not a bad idea to shoot him a message either. Link in description. Let's get back to the show.
Well, so first off, in order to get even considered in those circles, I ran a race team in Cincinnati. It was called Rohr. It was owned by a man named Jochen Rohr, a German, and his company built dredging machines.
Okay.
And I worked for him, built cars for him, did some cup cars and some GT2s and GT2 Evos, et cetera, and ended up with a Gen 1 GT1 car.
A GT what car?
GT1 Porsche.
Yep.
The Carrera GT1
Yeah.
from the
Yeah,
90s.
yep.
Right.
H patterns.
So in 1997, we imported that thing. It was actually from the Rook brothers in Leverkusen, where they had it. And Jochen made a deal, and we brought it into the United States. We imported it. We had a pretty good relationship with Porsche Motorsport at that point in time.
Sure.
And we were able to get a hold of a lot of information and stuff to help us. Anyway, we brought in this Porsche, painted it school Hertz rental truck yellow, put a crazy graphics package on it, and it was driven by a very young, not very well known in the United States, Scotsman named Alan McNish.
Yeah.
Right?
What was that?
Alan McNish.
Alan McNish?
Right.
He's a legend. He's a legend.
He's the legend in Audi and in many racing circles. He's a incredibly talented, very determined Scotsman, and he races fiery. He's got a fiery, attitude, in competition and so forth. And I mean, he's a winner. And so we ran this car in 1997 for him in the second half of the season, and we won every race we entered with it. And so this got the attention of Dave Mirage, the man I mentioned before, in Florida, because he was coming up to buying a GT1 Porsche. So we ended up racing them head-to-head at Daytona, beating the South Florida team soundly with a Black Sheep squadron from Cincinnati. I mean, we're talking pretty Black Sheep operation here. But some very, very talented technicians that worked with me that I actually worked at the Porsche dealership with. A fellow named Brian Copans is a gearbox specialist and a very talented mechanic. And a very young John Wright, who ended up having a team in IMSA, Wright Motorsports from Ohio as well, that they've done a lot with GT3 cars and so forth. Anyway, we were on this team. We beat the South Florida team, got some notoriety. We got a factory car the next year, which was a kind of an off-cast, beat-up old car that they tore up at Spa somewhere, and they last minute shipped it to us and got it ready to go for Daytona. And me and Bobby Green, I'm still do stuff with Bobby in my little brick shop. Britt knows the brick shop. My compound's a weird collection of 8 little mismatched buildings that are
very
all
cool.
That were all built for something else, but we use them to do cars in. Well, the truck shop's pretty purposeful, but everything else is just kind of an adaptation. Anyway, we built this, a lot of this GT1 in the brick shop. We took it to Daytona. We were successful again with it, and we were on our way. So Rohr finished up operations, and then I was hired by Champion to work for them, run their GT1 car. Now, at this point in time, I know it's a long lead into your question. At this point in time, Porsche was still considered that they were going to be in the P900 world, right?
Okay.
Now, just recently, and I'm talking about the last 4 or 5 months, there's been pictures emerge of what would have been the Porsche Le Mans car, the P900 car.
Yep.
So this car was a top secret Skunk Works project. And it, I'm amazed that for over 20 years, nothing ever emerged about that car, because it was a running P900 car with V10 engine in it. It looked a lot like the Audi, looked a lot like the R8, but they somehow managed to keep it completely closed and completely out of the press. Well, this car was developed, and the project was killed by Dr. Wiedeking, and it fully looked like Porsche wasn't going to enter into the P900 world and go back to Le Mans, right? So working for a man who owned a Porsche dealership and so forth, this left us no avenue to go forward. So we built a car with Porsche's support, which was one of the worst race cars I've ever worked with. It was a Lola, was a B2K10 Lola with a Porsche engine in it that had the drivetrain basically from the GT1 98, the Le Mans winner in 1998. It had this horrible synchronized sequential gearbox. It was a good gearbox, but it shifted incredibly slowly. It was hard to handle. The guys hated it. And the car never had the power it should have had. It had a very bad rear weight bias. It had weird aerodynamics. Sorry, Lola guys, it's an ugly race car.
It's unbelievably bad looking.
It's an ugly race car. And it's one of those things that like you look at it and you go, I hope this works, because it's
These?
No.
Here.
That's a pretty Lola.
I can use my phone.
That's that's like a 600.
I was like, I didn't think it looked that bad, but maybe.
No.
That one looks like a winner.
No.
Okay.
Just type in champion.
It would have been funny if you were just like, oh, disgusting, and then show that one.
Yeah. No, I mean, and this was a project we took very seriously. So
yeah,
we had the opportunity with a major manufacturer.
Crazy
right?
looking.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right.
Lights in the middle of it. It's
right.
very crazy.
It's very angular.
Yeah.
And
it looks like a Pontiac Solstice.
Yeah.
That's just cruel.
Is very angular. Oh yeah, that's it.
It's like Daytona.
That's it. Looking
can't get Daytona.
On a good day. Yeah.
On a good day.
And we rubbed on this thing, and we loved on this thing, and gave it everything we could, and it showed little bits of potential.
Okay.
Here and there, but overall was not a good car.
Sure.
And it wasn't ever going to be a winner. When you put it up, it literally raced against the first R8 in Sebring. And
the R8 LMP car.
The R8 LMP car.
Okay.
And you're talking about different level here between these two cars. And they were both current flat bottom P900 cars.
Okay.
One with a huge future in front of it, and one with no future at all in front of it. So we abandoned that, and we went to Audi because of it, because there was no option for a Porsche. We wanted to race a Porsche, but there was no option there. And that's originally what put us in that situation.
Gotcha. Understood. Okay.
And so we made a deal with Audi to buy the first. It was a 4 Series LMP car. 405 was the chassis number for it, and it was a year-old works car that had been driven by Capello and McNish and those guys and so forth.
Okay.
And we'd watched it in action, and we knew what it was capable of. And so we ended up with this as a team. Now, we were already a pretty well-formulated team, but we had worked so hard in the development side of trying to develop a car that was really never going to go anywhere, that we weren't really completely where we needed to be sporting-wise.
Okay.
Because, first off, the car was a disaster, so we were usually worried about it just running, right? Seriously.
Yeah.
Just running and working and not misfiring and changing gears and not handling too atrociously. and so forth. And this was the target. And then suddenly we get this car where if we followed the lead that Audi Sport was giving us and worked within the setup parameters and so forth, we had a very real chance of doing well with. And so it completely, because now as a team, we weren't worried about the car. Now we had to worry, we'd never led a race before, right? We'd never been in the hunt in the final hour to be thinking about, pit stop strategy for, shortest fill time or when we were we were gonna do this. So we were kind of learning this after we got the car, because the car was no longer the weak link. We were.
Right.
And so as a team, we advanced quite quickly, and we nearly won the second race we went to. I mean, we got really, really close, and we opened some eyes, and people were like, these guys are actually going to be real.
Pay attention, sort of deal.
Yeah. And Mr. M was very clever that he basically put me in the testing program with Audi as a gimme.
Okay.
So he said, look, if my engineer Brad can do anything on this, whatever the testing jobs are, put him in, and I'll pay his salary, I'll pay his travel, I'll take care of him, but I want him inside the project so he's learning on the development side.
Wow. Okay.
So I spent a lot of time in Germany and a lot of time on the test team, and I got to know the people in Ingolstadt, the development people, the engineers, designers, and so forth. I was invited to their house for parties, went to Oktoberfest together. I mean, it was an immediate match because the philosophy from these people was so much in line with my own that I felt like I was home.
Uh-huh.
I really did. I felt accepted, I felt heard, and I felt valued. And subsequently, I got put in on a lot of the development stuff, and particularly tires.
Okay.
Did a lot of tire testing and did a lot of stint running and report writing based on tires and so forth. And this was a massive, massive advantage to us, because as we started to race the car ourselves, every time I went to Europe and came back, I brought another thumb drive full of charts and graphs and aero maps and all this, the things that you could glean by face-to-face interaction and by saying, hey, can I have a copy of that? The kind of thing you'd never get in an email,
right,
if you ask for it. But if you're there and you're looking over the shoulder of somebody and say, you know what, that's really interesting, can I have a copy? Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. So our data stuff began to develop very, very quickly from that point of view, and it was just really smart business on Mr. M's behalf. To put us in a relationship with those people, to where by the time we were there the second year, we were already insiders.
You're probably going to need to ship your car soon, or know somebody that will. And as someone who used to work in freight logistics, I understand the difficulties of finding reliable transport, especially when trying to make it to rallies, racetracks, or to warehouse to hide your Corvette, because you're going through a messy divorce, and when she says everything, she means everything. Anywho, Nick Shearer is the proud owner of Sure Thing Logistics. Having traveled much of the country with every type of vehicle you can imagine, he's got the experience and reliability that you want to ensure a safe journey for your pride and joy. If you want to find out what it takes to ship your vehicle, go to surethlinglogistics.net, fill out the intake form, and be sure to let them know I sent you. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah, they had no hesitation sharing stuff with us.
Sure.
They liked coming to race in the United States. We had a lot of real bangers of parties and celebrations, and going out late at night, making relationships, and staying out, drunk in the bar till 3:00 in the morning with them, and
sure.
stuff
Is
like
that an
these,
invite, by the way, for tonight?
No, not tonight. But it was
sure.
It really cemented a lot of things, and Audi Sport wasn't that big at that point in time.
Right.
It was like 250 people.
Oh wow! Okay.
And it was in an old kind of grocery store provisions building that was off the actual edge of the factory there in Ingolstadt. So it was in kind of this old building with terracotta tile floor in it and stuff. And it was an old provisions distribution building for a grocery store, was what it was, and it had been converted into a workshop, and it was charming. what it lacked in sort of ergonomic convenience, it made up for by being cool.
Right.
And it was a big deal for us to get to go there. And so the first car that we built, we took an away team and went there, and it was Marcus Hazelgrove and my friend Bobby Green and my good friend that's working in my workshop today, Greg Kiwi Martin, our departed friend Keith Bransford, Gearbox builder, Keith the Big Kahuna. And so we went as this little group, and Greg Laird is our wiring guy. We went in this little group, and the Germans saw that we had all of the specialties covered. We had a really strong number one guy. We had a really strong engine-focused guy, a really strong gearbox guy, strong data guy. I was their engineer, and they saw that we had all these bases covered, and so the information really started to flow, and we became, I feel, kind of favorites of the guys in the factory because we were kind and humble and appreciative. And being in the customer racing business on and off a couple of different times through my career, I can tell you for sure that some people you can't help because they already know more than you do before you even start trying to explain anything to them.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of them. And it's usually those people I'd have very little time for because you know they don't know shit from apple butter and they won't listen to you.
Yeah.
Right? And they won't listen to you and they know everything already. So why are we having this conversation?
Sure.
And so you sell somebody a GT3 car, and you give them, when they ask you what it was a reference setup, and you send them the Spa setup sheet from the factory car that won the race last year, and they tell you they don't think so, right? They know better. That'll never work, whatever. It's like, how do you know? You've never even run this car a lap on a racetrack, and you're telling me what will and won't work. Anyway, I don't need to go into that. We were the opposite.
Very common.
We were the opposite in terms of the way. Somewhat, I controlled the narrative by saying, we are going to learn these people's way. If they do it, we're going to do it. Mm-hmm. If that's their start process, if that's their measurement process, if that's a process that they use to get where they're going, that's what we're going to do. We might diverge from it in our own way once we understand it completely. But until that point, what they do, we're going to do. And I think it was refreshing for the people at Audi Sport to see that we were actually appreciated what we were being given and that we were going to follow instructions and be good stewards of their, because we're racing their car now.
Correct.
Those guys that built and developed that car, they don't want to see their car put in a bad light because the team's doing a crummy job,
right? Not
listening, making their own parts, whatever it is. And we made sure that we were not those guys. And the Brits, they couldn't really do that. The other German teams could do. Not this Brit, but the Brits. And I'm not picking
one T in that one.
I'm not really picking on my British colleagues because they're very, very talented, and so on. But by their own actions, they did some things that were, they got what they deserved. When they did some of these things. So anyway, we really hit the ground running with the people in Ingolstadt, and it was a very heady time. It was a very good time. There was a lot of development, money, R&D. There was a lot of things going on that were really pushing motorsport forward. I mean, you got to realize that, the R8 LMP car was one of the first cars that had DI on the race engine.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this was considered revolutionary. Right? So this is 2001.
Yeah.
Right? Before that, cars didn't have DI on them. People didn't know what DI was, So, knowledge about tuning them and building them and so forth was all very, very new and experimental.
Well, manufacturing and even the injectors themselves at that point, right?
Correct. I mean, just the ability to control those kinds of pressures.
Yes.
Were it was unknown.
We just had Anderson Dick this morning on the show, CEO of Fuel Tech, and he was discussing controlling DI and all that with their ECU and all that. So it's a fresh topic for us.
It is, and even though now every production car you buy a Kia Sophia, it's got it's got a direct injected engine in it now, so it's everywhere.
Yes,
but in those days it was considered to be really an eye-opening thing. And when we did the percentages, the efficiency percentages based on Le Mans, it was, I won't say how many percent, but it was north of 10, right?
Wow.
Compared to a port injected engine.
Yeah, yep.
It's another lap, if not two, out of the same amount of fuel.
Wow.
And so it was a big departure, and it was a huge advantage. And it was an advantage that Audi really went for, under the superb, guidance of the company of Mr. Boretsky's department, the engine department there, one of the best engine departments ever, and they were able to make it work in a way that was a big advantage. And the rest of the world hadn't really caught up with all this yet. The rules makers didn't really realize how much of a difference this DI thing is going to make, and how much they're going to have to basically handicap the cars and change the fuel levels and stuff in them to get them to be right. And I don't know if you guys remember, in sports cars, there was a Cadillac P900 car. It was based on what they called it wasn't really a North Star engine. It was a McLaren based engine and so forth. But there was a Cadillac that was a quite good car. There were some early ones that were kind of ugly, square, chunky looking double hoop things. And then there was some pretty good looking, the Cadillac actually had a pretty good LMP project, and actually had some real drivers. JJ Leto drove one and so forth. But they never, even though it was GM powertrain, they didn't, they never had a DI engine.
We're in the middle of a podcast, but these guys are Autobahn members, so
they never had a DI engine for this car, and so they left that 10% of the fuel on the table and win anything with it. Not that it wasn't a decent car, it just it couldn't compete with the Audi that could run that much farther.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that pretty much standard now? Probably.
The DI?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. 100%. 100.
Sound like somebody fell down the stairs.
I know.
Yeah. 100%. And I mean, it's the system is so adaptable, and the drivability is so good, with it, that there's no reason to not have it. And just to give a little statistic here, when we started running the DI engines in the 5 and the 6 series Audi LMP cars starting in 2001, 2002, we could do on 90 liters, we could do 13 laps. Mm-hmm. Now, the 13th one was really based on a decent behavior of the driver and saving a little fuel in a couple spots.
Sure.
To get there. But if they would do that and save a little bit of fuel, we could get 13 laps out of 90 liters. Fast forward, let's say that's 2002. You fast forward that to 2015 with the R18 with the 3.7 liter TDI diesel and the hybrid drive, and you're doing 13 laps on 54 liters, right?
Wow. Almost half.
Yeah.
Almost half the amount of fuel.
Right. Mm-hmm. Huh. So that's just that alone is incredible, the amount of progress that we made.
And that's just one efficiency. It doesn't even include the rest of the car.
Doesn't include the rest. Doing the same lap time, having a lap time, pocket of 3:18, 3:20, something like that, 3-minute 20 or so around Le Mans, and being able to do that 13 times on, 55 liters of fuel. It's a big departure from doing the exact same time and distance on 90 liters of fuel. Mm-hmm. And it really was cool. What we were doing there, we were improving we were keeping the speed and so forth, and improving the efficiency at every step. And it was fun to be part of.
Can you do me a favor? What was your first experience at Le Mans? What did that feel like? What did that look like? What was it? Was it pleasant?
No, not at all.
Sure.
I had some exposure to it in the 90s.
Okay.
But didn't really, never worked for anybody that was, even going back to when I worked at Spice, there were some attempts to go there and back then you had to go and test and qualify and race in. And we had a car at one point in time that we tried to do that with and failed.
Sure.
So made the effort, didn't make it. So that's an experience in and of itself. But it's going to be 2001 with the first R8 with Champion, which was a really first legitimate me in charge with the clipboard and trying to figure out all the nuances of this place. And it wasn't pleasant. No, sure. It was us being compared to, I mean, automatically as Americans in a European kind of culture over there, we don't know anything. Just because we don't know anything, fact is we really didn't know very much. We knew how to run the car and so forth, but we didn't really understand the nuance of the track, and we didn't understand the nuance of dealing with the French and the particular procedures about the way things happen there. So we learned really fast, but it was that was really the first valid experience is 2000 or 2001. Okay. And we entered in that. We did very well in that race, but we also ended up in the gravel trap, and man driving the car didn't follow the getting out of the gravel protocol.
What's the protocol? Just curious.
Yeah. Make sure you're in first gear.
Just to not spin it too hard
before you smoke the clutch, trying to get out of there in third gear. So that was one area where the Audi had a very, still by today's standards, a pretty diminutive carbon clutch and an extremely good clutch, but the design philosophy of this clutch was to race Le Mans with it. And that means that probably launched out of the pit lane, including qualifying and everything else, 40 times, 45 times. And that was all it was meant to do.
Sure.
40 cycles, get the car going that many times. And so it was fairly small and fairly delicate in those terms. And I mean, you couldn't break it by running the car hard. It was impossible. It would last forever. But abusage, riding it, slipping it in the wrong gear, and it's over immediately. Oh, really? And so we ended up in the gravel trap, and he managed to get out of the gravel trap in third gear, and when the wheels hit the pavement and got some traction, it slipped the clutch, and that was it. The car lost all its drive, and we couldn't make it back to the pit lane.
Damn.
And that was our first experience. That was about 8 hours in.
Sure.
And it didn't happen to us again.
So what was your first happy experience?
First happy experience was actually at the pre-test for that first race.
Okay.
Coming away from it, splitting the factory cars with our qualifying time.
With what?
With our qualifying time, split the factory cars. We were P2 at the end of the pre-test thing, which was a huge eye opener because we were ahead of one of the Yost cars behind us, and kind of a lot of eyebrows went up, like, wow, these guys are actually pretty fast. And
that's a huge deal. Just for context to the listeners, I mean, if you're showing up as an American privateer team into what would be the German factory team's backyard, right?
Sure.
They're, essentially you assume they're prepping their car better. They have a better driver lineup, et cetera, better resources as the factory. But to fly over the ocean with shipping containers, with all your equipment, go to Le Mans as a single car team, and run right in between both of those cars. That is
right.
We're on it.
Right.
We're in there.
Right.
We're in the window.
We knew we were on the setup and so forth. And I like, my style of setting up a car and so forth. I like fast racetracks. I don't like little twisty bull rings and little low downforce like Laguna Seca. Everybody loves Laguna Seca.
No,
But I don't. I mean, it's a cool area and so forth.
The
And
ocean's
everything
nice.
about it's great. But, it's a 140 mile an hour racetrack.
Sure.
When you get to the end of it, it's a low grip, slippery, low speed racetrack.
Yep.
And that's not really what I like. I like places like Spa, like Road America, where the car gets in high gear and it pulls for 10
Sure.
seconds, places where I like places where you can run lighter aero and so forth and play with the balance of the car by lightening the aero on it and really getting it to free up and show top speed and so forth. I love top speed racetracks, places that are fast. So I really right away, because Le Mans, there's so many corners and everything, you can't really tailor a car for somebody for a particular, it has to be good through the Porsche corners. It has to be good on the exit of Mulsanne, has to be good into Indy and stuff. And those are really the trends that you look for and the top speed, because you can't tune it for every corner. It's just, there's too many. And so you try to tune it for these places that are in particular challenges for the car. And I love that. And, I love it when they go 325K. I mean, that's, it's awesome. I always liked it, and I like tuning the car to get that additional top speed out of it and so forth.
So touch on tuning a car for a weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does your job consist of, right? Because as an engineer, right? So can you just kind of break down what a normal, like, let's say a test day, what does that look like?
Well, it depends on what you're there to do.
Okay.
I mean, if you're there to develop something for a next event, you're going to have something that you're going to focus on. Say you're going to race at a street course, where there's a lot of manhole covers and different types of pavement and stuff like that. You're going to work on, a setup that has a lot of, where the suspension is very lively and, so forth. Your job as an engineer is first to pick the setup that you want to start with.
Okay.
Right. And that's really critical. And that's where keeping good notes and understanding where you're going is important. It's always good if you have a last year's report, read it, because there's going to be a nugget in there that you're going to forget. And it's something that's going to pop up that you swear you'd remember. But when you read your own report, you're like, oh, I wrote this and I still didn't remember that. And so to pick the right base setup to start with, and to really understand your tires going into it, what you're hoping to accomplish with the tire, which type of spec you're going to use, where you're going to start with your pressures, and work on in the initial phases of the test day of the run to work on establishing a good baseline. And by that, I mean the proper tire pressure. Make sure you don't adjust anything on the car until the tires are hot and you really understand what you're doing. A lot of people have a tendency to start clicking on things and moving things around before they get to that point, and you just end up chasing your tail. I learned from a very, very clever engineer named Joe Hausner, who was a development engineer at Audi. And he basically wouldn't do anything until the drivers had really driven the car, got the pressures up, and got the pressures in the right window and so forth. And then representative lap time and comments and so forth, he would consider changing something. But up to that point, they would say, oh, I got this just absolutely blinded cross-arm understeer and so forth. He's like, yeah, okay. Keep going. It didn't register to him. I mean, it did, but he didn't react to it.
Right.
And I learned to kind of slow my reactions down, very similar to the way he did, and make sure
it less impulsive.
Yeah, be less impulsive, and to try to get the bedrock things right.
Okay.
Right. Try to get the bedrock things right. You're not hitting the ground too hard. You're not leaping off of curbs in a way that's uncontrollable. And to get the tire pressures in the window, and then start looking at the nuance of the way the shocks are working or whatever. And I'm still very much of a throwback and now quite an anachronism in the race engineering world, because when I, even working with the Audi had a terrible data system on it. It's virtually non-existent.
Okay.
It was based on a laboratory software. It was a great laboratory software, but wasn't very usable in the field.
Right.
And it had the data logger held these big giant data cards called PCMCIA cards. I don't know if you've ever seen one. It's about the size of a playing card and about, I don't know, 2-3 millimeters thick, has its own battery in it and so forth, and holds a remarkably small amount of data, right? And only a few channels, and very little of those channels in terms of, so depending on the size of the racetrack and the sample rate, it could be 2 to 3 laps of information, and that was it. So it wasn't like you could sit there and look at a big trend, a scatter graph of what happened over 25 laps, lay it all out and print it and whatever.
Yep.
You had to use these little snippets of things, and we still used, we painted the underfloor, the skid blocks with paint, see how hard they're hitting and where.
Oh, sure.
And so forth. And so because the car was very kind of tactile from that point of view and didn't have a really great data system, in the beginning, it really matched my kind of style setting up sports racers and things, in the old days with no data system. So you talked to the driver, you looked at the zip ties on the shock rods and a couple other things and skid blocks, and you made some decisions based on that. And so the R8 and I kind of suited each other, in that respect, and the data system wasn't that good. So we ended up just kind of using the data system to sort of validate our feelings.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of leading the conversation, it was more of a validation process. And then our engineer at the time, Marcus Hazelgrove. Do you know Marcus?
Yeah, he worked at another championship in the U.S. after he was done with Audi. Yeah, I do.
Nice
guy.
Marcus is a genius. We're still close friends and so forth. Well, he was able to write some channels to use Excel to break down a lot of the data on the car and create some graphs that were actually sensible to help us, and in particular histograms. So he was able to come up with a math channel that could interpret all the histogram information through this primitive data set, and then make it viewable and comparable using an Excel program, because he's really, really strong with Excel, right? And so he literally made, histograms with, and then we would look for a certain curve, certain kind of bell curve for the histogram.
Yep.
And what we discovered was when we got the shape the right way, that's where the grip was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we started to use those tools to find the grip. We could get close with the driver comment, and then we could home in on it looking at the histograms. And we had several different styles of histograms, some with, I think, 6 or 8 or 10 bins, and some with 2 bins, bump, rebound.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
And you can see the percentage of time the car is in both
That is
phases.
incredibly valuable at this point.
Yes, very, very valuable and very, very elemental.
Yeah.
But, what goes up has to come down, right, in terms of the suspension.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right? So, ultimately, everything has to return to its zero position at some point.
Yep.
And so we use these tools, very, a lot. And again, Marcus was super critical to that operation, and he even impressed the people at Audi. They were like, I can't believe that this guy can pull this stuff out of the information, because they're paying full-time staff people all the time to develop, algorithms to look for things and so forth. And here comes this British kid from a customer team, not kid, but young British guy from a customer team that develops this absolutely genius channel that allowed us to look for where the grip was. Sure. And it was a valuable tool. It really worked very, very well. Yeah. And it helped us find the sweet spot in the cars. And our cars were usually quite fast, because we, again, paid attention to the bedrock details and the base setup stuff, and then tuned it with real knowledge.
Sure.
And
you talked about tires a little bit earlier
Mm-hmm.
too. So, I'm sure a lot of goes into figuring out what's used. Are you changing tire compounds per track at all? Is there a brand that you guys are using that you found that you really liked? Or
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to race in sports cars, you got to run Michelin's.
yeah,
I concur.
okay.
Yeah,
Because
totally.
it's
Yeah.
just
Okay,
there's a reason the products are just incredible, and the engineering that goes into the products and the development that goes into the products. It takes a while to really understand the depth of how strong this company is, because of the chemistry and the supply chain materials, the consistency. I mean, it's just, what can I say? I mean,
Yeah.
we would use different. We would do, in the early days, we would have 3 or 4 choices of construction / compound with the hot weather and medium and soft, and then a couple of different construction profiles that we in particularly liked or whatever. And this was usually developed at a early season test. We would do a lot of reference testing, which would be basically 5-lap performance runs in between long runs. So what we would do is we would get a good setup on the car, get the car handling well and riding the bumps well, not hitting the ground, to get the aero balance, where it needs to be. And then we wouldn't change the car except for the tire. And then we would cycle all these different aspects of tires through and look at what their influence on the car was based on that. And
That sounds super interesting.
Very, very illuminating. It really is. And Michelin had a pretty stratified way that we went about it. And in a lot of times the tires were kind of unknown to the driver, and in some ways unknown to the engineer as well. So that we would, it's just test set 6 in, here we go.
right.
We do 5-lap performance run. We would match the fuel load in the car, and so that we could literally change nothing about the car except for the tires.
Okay.
And then look at what the influence was there, and repeating your reference performance run every 4th or 5th run. So say, for example, you have just pick one out. We have an M compound that's your baseline, that's your reference. It's kind of like your control and experimental group, in a scientific experiment. So your control is going to be this tire, and every 4th or 5th run throughout the day, you're going to do another 5-lap performance run on that tire. So you're going to say, reference run, experiment, reference, etc.
Okay.
Right.
And that way you see, as track conditions change, atmospheric, ground temperature, all this other stuff changes, you see an influence on the reference, and therefore the influence on the experimental group. And we would, the guys would come in, stop in the pit lane, and we would have a small clipboard that would be for their general knowledge, understeer, oversteer, bump compliance, curbs, et cetera, and just a very, very short, basic, like plus minus
Right.
thing, time of day, next set, go again, do it over and over and over. And then at the end of the day, you would do a summary, and you would basically give the drivers the opportunity to speak to each run a bit more in depth. When they're in the zone and they're in the car and the visor's up, you just want to bang the next set on and send them, right? You don't want too much sitting around talking, letting the car cool off. You want to hit it. And then there's time to talk about all the different shots that they took, And, what used to amaze me, especially like people like Tom Christensen and JJ Leto and Alan McNish and so forth, these really high pro guys that you could go, they might drive, 15 sets of tires or 20 sets of tires in a day. At the end of the day, in the debrief, they could pretty much tell you, yeah, I missed the apex on 13 on middle of that run. I clipped the curb too hard. I did this and that. It's like a pro golfer. breaking down the scorecard.
Sure. Yep.
You know, the
It's
shots.
a big separator there.
Yeah,
big separator.
The shots that they hit fat or whatever. You know, they misjudged, used the wrong club or whatever. That, you know, just like in any other pro athlete, these guys could recall those laps and say, no, they don't know the number, but they'll tell you, man, partway through that run, I made a mistake here. I got 2 wheels in the dirt.
Yep.
Et cetera. And it was this testing protocol was really, really effective. And we would usually come out of each test with a direction of where we were going to go with the next phase of tire.
Sure. Yep.
And it gave us a pretty big advantage as a team too, because as we ran the different constructions very early, we could get a pretty good idea on what to do with spring rate and damping and so forth by looking at the construction of the tire and the way the tire behaved, you know, on the racetrack. And I loved it. I loved doing the testing. I loved writing the reports from it. I got quite good at doing the analysis of the tire. Basically, you know, they used to joke me about having a trained thumbnail, you know, because, you know, I'd push my thumb into them and you can feel the construction. You can feel the compound. You can feel the way the cords are wrapped. I mean, I don't know exactly what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
But I know, you know, that
it's like trying to pick an avocado out at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen him pick a bad one out.
Yeah. But I got pretty good at understanding what I was looking at, you know, being able to see traction stress, you know, being able to figure out, you know, braking stress. I mean, you can look at different aspects of the way that the tire looks, the way the chemicals are migrating in it, just even the color, the color on the surface.
Oh, wow.
And the amount of glisten, you know, how much solvent entrapment is in there, how much is coming out. I mean, you can really understand a lot more about the tire if you spend a lot of time kind of rubbing it between your fingers and smelling it and kind of understanding.
Still Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah,
huh?
it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And it's kind of an intangible skill that I don't think they're ever going to develop a machine to be able to do it.
Right.
And when you see it, and when you see a tire that is in good aspect, as what you would describe in a Michelin report, it's obvious, yet I can't explain to you really what it is.
Sure.
Right?
It's true.
He's
taught me a lot about this stuff.
It's tough, and you just got to learn to kind of trust your instincts.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of it there, and the one great knock-on effect to this knowledge is what it can give you when you go to the takeoff rack at where the tires are all getting changed, and you look at what your competitors are doing.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And you're like, well, we're not going to have to worry about these guys. Have you seen the amount of garbage on their front tires?
Right, yep.
You know, they got graining from the center line. They got traction stress. They got ABS problems. They got flat spots.
Yeah.
You know, they've got rim walk migration. You see all this stuff, and you see who's really in trouble and who's hitting the ball, you know, right and doing a good job with it. And all that information is just sitting there on those tire trolleys for you to look at.
Yep.
And if you have a good idea what you're looking at, there's a lot of info there.
Sure.
And,
I can attest.
Yeah.
I did a race this year where, well, I've done a lot of races this year, but one of them, I won't say which one because I like these guys, but I looked at my my tires. I guess I'm not really going to say how. BK is going to know how. He taught me how. But you can know when you're starting too low on pressure comparatively to other sets. And I was like, yeah, you know, I'd probably say it's about 2 pounds low. You know, I gave it a number. I was confident enough to give it a number. And yeah, it was 2 pounds low. I knew the entire time though. Like you knew that the tire had started from a lower pressure just based on what it visibly looked like after the session.
Really?
The wear was different, and it was if you know what you're looking at, you're like,
Yeah.
I mean,
can
it's like
see it.
5 seconds. Yeah,
You can see it.
Yeah.
Really?
It's pretty
Yeah, for
obvious.
sure.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. And like, you know, things like traction stress and like, you know, braking stress and so forth, they're quite obvious because you can see, you know, the way that and I'm sure any of the tire engineers that are going to listen to this are going to say, listen to this bullshit this guy's saying. But it's
we
true.
get a lot of tire engineers on the show. I've heard talk, yeah.
It's true. You can see the migration of the compound, and you can see when it was a big revelation in tires. And I'll probably get the innovator of this completely wrong, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it anyway. Bridgestone, back in the 90s, developed a kind of a long link carbon molecule.
Okay.
And they were credited for really developing it. And what this allowed was the molecules inside the rubber in the compound was we were able to get longer molecular linkages, right? Longer chains of molecules hooked together. And this gave the tire a lot more strength and a lot more ability to absorb abuse and other things. And of course this has been used, all across the tire world now, and is completely part of it. But when you look at it on a racetrack level, on a tactile level, you can see when the tire's getting ripped apart, when it's getting stretched and stressed and torn, it has a different look to it. And that's what you learn to look for. And, traction stress is usually pretty obvious. You can see all the surface all bent over one way. Graining or cold graining is usually identified with a center line that develops in the tire, which is the overlapping part where the two plies are laid over each other before the tire's cooked. And that line will emerge. You see that in Formula One and stuff too, when you can see the front tires on the cars, when sometimes the commentators talk about in their graining.
Oh yeah, all the time over the radio and all that.
Right.
It's like, like you mentioned earlier, it's like, oh, we don't have to worry about this guy. Like they'll always be like, for example, Lando's Norris is his
you see his tires are all grained up, and he's got way more steering angle. He's breaking the grip all the time. He's in trouble, right? He's in trouble, and he's just holding on. Waiting for the next pit stop to try to get
just praying to make it.
Yeah, trying to make it. And formula cars are an advantage because you can see the tires.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, because you can see them, and a really astute driver and so forth can kind of understand when that's going on and when it isn't. In a sports car, it's a little bit more difficult.
Sure.
And you have to know what it feels like when they're graining and so forth. And you have to know what to do at that point in time. The other thing that's really big in sports cars, talking about tires, is for the drivers, if they almost all of them will have some sort of process that they go through to clean them.
Okay.
Right. To basically scrub the excess rubber, pickup rubber off of them. And this will usually be a spot on a racetrack somewhere where they actually break the grip on purpose, where they actually, meet the mechanical limit and then break it so that they slide, and, to try to scrub the pickup off of them and clean them up. And and guys that are really astute in sports cars are good at doing this, and they're good at knowing when they need to do it and how to do it. And they usually figure this out during the practice days and so forth, where there's a spot where they can safely charge a corner and break the grip and kind of grind on the front tires and clean them up. And like racing at Road Atlanta Petit Le Mans turn 5, the uphill left-hander with that soft curb there, Yep. So you go down through the S's, and when you start up the hill, when you start up and you kink left there, there's a little low curb. It's not a gator back curb. It's a little low curb there.
Okay.
And it's got a different surface because it's a transition for the driving school there, and it's real rough and porous.
Sure.
And it's a safe spot where you can charge that corner and break the grip on the car, and you're not really in danger of flying off the racetrack or hitting anything.
Sure.
And even if you go over that little curb, it's a gentle curb. It doesn't ride hard. It doesn't hurt anything. Huh. And once every 5 laps, if you're running by yourself, charge that corner and grind the fronts up a little bit, and then the car comes back.
Livens it up.
Livens it up.
Because there aren't a lot of left-hand corners at Road Atlanta, so you don't really get the right front to flare up on temp very much. So if it is struggling on temperature, even under green flag, and you purposely scrub through 5, you can kind of wake up the whole car sometimes.
Right.
Really? Okay.
And the guys that are really astute at doing this, they will figure out a spot in any racetrack, that this is a place I can pull this off. They also look for, hunting spots, oddball places to overtake by not running the conventional line, by being missing in the mirrors to make the guy in front of you look for you. And then all of a sudden you come whizzing in from an obtuse
yep.
angle, because you've way run the corner out and squared it off or done something different. And so the guys that are really good, the guys that I worked with especially, would find somewhere that this is a spot where they can set somebody up if they need to. Yeah. And that's fun. It's fun knowing what that is and what they might do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about a particular pass, and this will make Alan mad probably, and JJ happy. These two guys were racing hammer and tong at the 2005 Sebring 12 hour. I mean, hammer and tong. I mean, they were teammates, but there was no love lost between them in terms of
That's your first competitor every single time.
In terms of competition, there was absolutely knife in the teeth every lap, coming. And so just about dusk, JJ was behind Alan, and he'd been having a run at Alan for several laps and wasn't able to get it done. Alan is an incredibly hard man to pass. I mean, he just is. I mean, even if he's not faster than you, he's going to make you work really, really hard to get by him. Not dirty, but just difficult.
Yeah.
And so,
both of these drivers are former Formula One drivers as well at this point.
Yeah.
So they're dialed in, fast.
So I don't know if you guys know Sebring, but there's a big long run down the back straight between 16 and 17.
Correct. Yeah.
And 17 is an incredibly bumpy kind of double turn in corner that goes under the bridge there with a couple of huge heaves in it and stuff. It's a tough corner.
Yeah.
Car rides hard there. You got to have it in the right spot, and you got to be prepared to catch it because it's going to bounce and move around and so forth.
Yeah.
So, JJ had been trying him, a couple laps through sort of conventional means, and he got a good run on him coming off of 16, and he went way out to the farthest extreme of the track, where Alan told me later he thought he'd spun or crashed because he didn't see him in the mirror. And he went all the way down on the very outside of the track limit, the farthest away from the walls he could get. And Alan turned in and made the corner in the conventional way, and JJ drove an enormous arc and went clear down into the runoff area around 17 and came and swooped in front of him just coming off of 17 and missed him by about 3 feet, chopped across his bow, and ended up in front of him. It scared Alan, shocked him.
Yeah, naturally.
He wasn't looking for him to show up there, and suddenly here's this R8 in front of him that just he literally wasn't in a position to be able to clock where he was coming from because he was such a weird line, and it was caught from the helicopter.
Yeah,
and you could see the big long radius, and then the
that is a crazy pass to make right there.
Crazy pass to make, and he made it. I
had to find that footage after this immediately.
Yeah, I haven't seen this pass either. He's got my thoughts going.
He made it and made it stick, and and got down the road from him a little bit. And those guys those cars were fun to race with those level of drivers.
Yeah,
because the car was so good by that point in time. By 2005, we'd been running that same car for 5 years.
Okay.
That same general car. We had a couple different versions, but the R8 in general was, a car we were very familiar with as a team, and we could get it just right. And the 2002 version of car with the ride height control and the DI engine and stuff was a weapon. It really was a remarkable race car. And still is.
Yeah, still is.
I think, so first of all, I want to point out this is a great tragedy of how short this podcast is. Even at an hour and a half, I think we could talk another 10 hours here.
I told you. I told you we would.
I knew you weren't kidding, but first of all, I'm going to make Ohio as soon as humanly possible.
Okay.
Because there absolutely needs to be a part 2, 3, 4, and 5 to this.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys got to come see his shop.
Absolutely.
Seriously.
Oh, yeah.
But unfortunately, I do have to, we have to do the usual 3.
Okay.
And then we can wrap this up. But this was absolutely phenomenal. I feel like we haven't even
I know you got
the snow off the top of the top layer.
We haven't even got to diesels yet.
No.
Yeah, I know. We haven't got the
diesels
R10.
yet.
But you know what? I can really appreciate the level of detail in all the stories you told today. So that was Awesome.
Yeah.
But let's do our closing remarks, and then we'll close it up.
Sure. So
Yeah.
you want me to pop the question?
Yes.
All right.
Let's do it.
All right. So at the end of every episode, we like to ask our guest or guests to pick 3 cars. I need a track car, a daily driver, and a show car. You have an unlimited budget. You can build whatever you want.
Track car being
Any kind of track you want.
a racing car.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, for me, there's anybody that knows me is going to say it's an R8 LMP car.
Sure.
The 2002 version.
I mean, like we've just been talking about for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I had to look it up, by the way. I don't follow that stuff very much. I had to look up.
I
it
am
is
the
a
researcher
beautiful
between the
car.
two of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I know we got to wrap this up, but
Yeah.
Sure.
I talked just a little bit ago about ugly race cars.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's funny that through history, or at least through my history, when I come across race cars that are ugly, they normally are not very good cars.
Yeah.
Sure.
But when they're beautiful, they usually are.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what beauty's got to do with
It-
the way
maybe
they
somebody
perform.
like they just took like a little extra step, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
look like somebody just threw it together and
Yeah.
they put some thought into it.
And I'll tell you guys, the first time I saw the Generation 4 R8 LMP, which is the 2000 version, I saw it in Ingolstadt in the measurement room. And you can't see it now because I'm wearing a blazer and a long sleeve shirt,
Yeah.
but I still get goosebumps when I talk about this. But I went in there and they pulled the plastic curtain back, the welder's curtain back, and it was sitting there on the ground. And it's about this high, right?
Oh, wow.
And it was all in black, in non-reflective black, wind tunnel black. And it was the baddest looking mother I had ever seen. And I was like,
Yeah.
holy cow, look at this race car.
Yeah.
And you just knew it from the jump.
Yeah.
You're like, this thing, the way it looked, and just when you walked around it, you were rewarded with the proportions, and just every detail you looked at just seemed like it was so well thought out. It had always been there, right? And so anything in your mind that you can imagine in terms of perfection is what it looked like.
Okay.
And I still love them. And many, many, many days closing up Champion Racing in the old days, being the last guy out of the shop and turning all the lights off and stuff. And, I loved it when the cars were done before they were on the trucks.
Mm-hmm.
They were all done and aligned and graphicked and polished and sitting there on the ground and, in their work stalls and turning the lights off and just having the security lights on at night and just looking at them.
Yeah.
And being like, good night, ladies. We're gonna go make a big deal out of this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, these cars are
they're
like,
very, very special cars,
Extremely.
and they always have been. So I know that's a long answer to number one. Number two is a daily driver.
Yeah.
I'm a 911 guy.
Okay.
I love
Okay.
911s, all years, all types.
All right.
I really, really like. I'm very traditionalist, so I really like air cooleds, and I would
Okay.
love to have a Carrera S, which is a wide body 993.
Okay.
So it's a turbo bodied 993
Oh, wow,
without the
okay,
turbo
yeah.
engine in it.
Okay, that's an
Did
uncommon
we
answer.
have one of those at Sonderworks when we were there? There was a wide body one there, wasn't there, or no?
No, that was something
The
different.
Carrera S is quite possibly the sexiest
Okay.
series of shapes of that car, I think, ever.
Sure.
The 997's pretty damn
Yeah.
sexy too. They all are, but that 993 wide by the Carrera S. So if anybody wants to buy me one, I'll be happy to
I'll
drive
take
it.
the Turbo S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take the Carrera
Yeah.
S.
All right.
I don't even need a turbo. Just
Yeah.
a 993, just an air cooled.
Sure.
I'd like to have one with a manual gearbox. Don't
sure.
have to have, but I'd like to have one with a manual gearbox.
It still has
I
the old
have-
shifting.
Yeah, I have 4 Porsches now.
Okay.
One 911, and various other ones. But I'm a big fan. I love 911s. So it's daily driver, something like that is very special to me. No matter even if it's an old one.
It's kind of funny that I think about this all the time. Like they kind of, so they got that unique design to them, right? And it's been their look since forever, and
I know.
still now, and nobody's really like copied it or anything. It's
Because
just,
it doesn't make sense.
right,
Right?
kind of
It's
right.
because it really
Yeah.
doesn't make sense when you look at it
Yeah,
in the terms of, development and so forth. Initially, yes, but after a while, no. And yet it's so much a part of its identity that it would not be what it is if you changed it. Like, I'm not trying to pick on Corvette, but I love the new Corvette, the mid-engine one.
Yep.
It's cool, but it looks like everybody else's car.
Right.
Right. And I really liked them when they were front center engine. Like a C7 with a 427 in it and stuff. That's a hot rod, man. That's a cool, very capable, bullet fast, neat car.
Sure.
It's unique.
Yep.
And it's uniquely American, the way it sounds, the way it looks. The engine's in the front middle of it doesn't make a lot of sense and so forth. But that's what I liked.
Yeah.
I thought that, and even though I'm sure the new car is better in every respect.
It's freaking fast.
I know it is. I know it is.
Yeah.
But I know it
Yeah.
is. But it's part of its identity's missing.
Yeah.
When you get to be my age, that matters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The tradition side of it matters. And I don't know. I liked them when they were still kind of America. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
But, you know, and they started to look like an NSX, which is which is obviously, you know, it's like all the street cars. They all look like raindrops now. So I mean, okay, I get it. That's where everybody's going. But I loved it when it had a kind of a unique thing. So what was the third car?
Show car.
Show car. Yep.
He's got a ton of them.
What are
Choose
we,
one of them though.
what are we showing?
You
Take somebody to the ice cream shop.
Yeah.
Oh, just a fun
Just a
car?
show
Yeah.
car, right? Yeah.
You go to a car show. You pull out your lawn chair and you sit there.
The
You know,
harvester tractor.
yeah, I mean, I have. You guys will see if you come out and visit me.
Yeah.
I have 42 cars.
Somebody
I told you.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
I am not proud of that, and I'm trying to work
Lot of
on
bikes.
minimizing it
Okay.
and so forth. I love car. I love everything about cars.
Yeah.
Or most things, but I love car history, and I love looking at the history of societies, countries, peoples through the lenses of the cars that they drove, what they built, and what they had available to them. And I really, as a historical marker, I really like stuff from the 60s
Okay.
and from the 50s even. I love big American lead sleds. I have several Cadillacs.
Like the space
so
race
forth.
era.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love stuff like that.
That's cool.
So it's like a showy car. It would probably be some kind of, you know, something completely impractical and just odd.
Yeah.
You know, like a 50s Pontiac convertible or
Okay.
you know, something
When I
really
think odd, I think of like an Edsel.
yeah, like an
Yeah,
Edsel
right.
or like a Delta 88 or
Okay.
something, not a Tri-5 Chevy, you know, and something, maybe a big Lincoln. I love early Lincolns.
Yep.
I drive a Lincoln now. And
So
I
do
I love early Lincolns because some of them are just incredibly bizarre the way that they're made and so forth. And so probably a big cruiser, big American cruiser of some kind, big lead sled of some kind. I have a personal car. I have a '68 Cadillac I call Buttercup, and Buttercup, it looks like a stick of butter, and
It's literally
it's
that
literally
same
the color of butter.
Yeah.
It's very appropriately named that, and I dream about having the money to put air ride and do a couple things to this car, but otherwise leave it just the way it is.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. Because I
Oh, so
love,
is that the one?
I like, that's one of my very favorites.
You said the name was Buttercup?
Buttercup.
Buttercup.
Buttercup is a 68 sedan DeVille Cadillac
Okay.
with a 472 engine in it. It's yellow.
The top comes down on it?
No,
too,
it's
or-
4-door,
Four-door?
hard top. Yeah, no pillar. It's a very cool car.
Yeah.
It's no pillar, and it's got an avocado interior in it,
Okay.
which is really odd.
I
Really
bet.
cool.
It's very cool, but it's very odd, and
Sure.
that's what I love about it. You know, I just love that it's such a different thing,
Very.
and I love the drivetrain. I love that 472 motor and that long shaft hydromatic. Awesome,
Sure.
Yeah, I also have a drag car. I have a drag race car.
It's
So I
awesome.
have
It's also
I have
awesome.
a '66 Malibu
Okay.
station wagon. That's an old drag car. It's actually got an NHRA cage number in it from
Oh, wow, okay.
1974. So it's been a drag car a long time. It's got a 545 big block in it, and a trans brake, and 16-inch rear tires and stuff. It's fun. It's really fun. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those old crazy scary cars with plexiglass windows and
Sure.
and it shakes and rattles a lot, and it's fast as hell. It's fun to drive. Gets front wheels off the ground, the right launch.
Just being to
we
earth.
can do a whole other episode just on the car collection.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, we will 100% be getting back together.
Yeah, we have to.
But you have to answer yours as well, even though you only talked 3 seconds this whole episode.
Well, that's okay. I like listening to
Just speed run
Brett
it.
Kettler. So, my top 3 the last time were, I think it was a Koenigsegg, track car. I think I did say, I said the R8. You know what I said? It was a 2016 R18, like the last chassis that they made of them, the black one.
Sure.
That was my track car.
Mm-hmm.
The last time.
That's
so
an
I guess
RP5.
Yeah, the very last one they made, thin nose.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you sticking with that track car?
Yeah, no, I think I got to change because I got to change them all.
You get an opportunity now, so yeah.
I don't know for race car wise. Yeah, race car. I'd say like the Aston Martin, the Valkyrie GTP car.
Oh,
it's
nice.
pretty cool
I
with
can
the
get with
V12.
that. Sure.
Yeah, the V12 is cool.
By the way,
And
I love that car too.
Yeah.
Just because it's so pure.
yeah, no hybrid.
Everything about it's pure.
It's pure.
Yeah.
And I love that.
All right.
And-
I have to ask the question. Did you read Adrian Newey's book?
No.
No? Okay. One rare instance.
I would love to.
Sure.
I appreciate the man very much. I
Sure.
appreciate his old school techniques,
Sure.
his non-computerized.
Yeah, I know. Just draw it on a board.
It shows
Yeah.
it shows that engineering can be. I've used to talk to my young guys on the team, and I said, if you close your laptop, are you an engineer still, right? Do you still think
Sure. Yep. Yeah.
like an engineer? Do you? So because you don't have to have a laptop to be an engineer, although many do. But you don't have to have it, and you can still think like an engineer and act like an engineer.
It
and
should
have
be
an
used as an
impact.
aid, right? You should be able to come up with it and then use that to
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I love the fact that he is so successful and has been so successful for such a long period of time, and still uses some very antique methods very effectively, and is one of the most important people in the paddock in terms of
absolutely.
understanding the nuances of those cars.
Yeah. So Valkyrie.
Yeah.
Valkyrie GTP car, not the street car.
Okay.
And then
Daily and show.
Daily, I said the last time it's a 1929 Ford pickup, my dad's car. That one,
Are you gonna
the
lock that
purple
in
one.
again, or
No, I'm gonna say.
Which is cool pickup, by
That's
the
a
way.
freaking cool one.
I know we pushed it around the shop.
Yeah.
I'll go crazy say the Mustang GTD from the video we did
okay,
Yeah?
nice.
because that car was special and it had a definitely a different vibe to it than the other two, which was the GT3 RS and the ZR1. I like the GTD. I think it's special. It's a lot of money, but
Yeah.
Sure.
it stands for something. And I like the way that the ride height changes when you shut the car off and open the door. It's pretty cool. So
if you
for
want
a daily
race car that's kind of comfortable to drive around in still, and
Yeah.
money's no
Okay.
object, so who
That
cares?
checks that box,
Yeah.
Right. So that's my everyday driver.
And then show car, last one.
Show car. I don't really think what was my last one? As a Koenigsegg.
You were 20 episodes ago, dude. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think it's a
I think I
Koenigsegg
memorized these out of your
CCXR.
mind.
Maybe have that reversed, but my daily would be the new Mustang GTD for what it is. You guys got to see that in person if you haven't. But I say show car. I'm going to make that the 29 Ford pickup that my dad has. Too.
Done deal.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's you got to move that
Perfect.
over.
By the way, I got to chime in here, and I love that the dark horse Mustang, the cup car.
Oh,
with
the race car,
the
the
race
R.
car,
Yeah.
the R with the, with a manual gearbox.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool.
Sure.
Seeing guys, your age,
Oh yeah.
that have to master those skills to drive a car with a manual gearbox, especially with an H pattern gearbox and so forth.
Yeah.
I know it's a thing.
Tremec.
I know it's a thing of the past.
Oh yeah, no, all of my children will learn how to drive on a manual.
Yeah. And I think that, when when you watch old Formula One in-car stuff and so forth, I mean, even in the Pro Senna era and so forth with the H pattern gearboxes and so forth, I think there's something a bit lost in the ability if you don't have to master that. You don't have to have the mechanical sympathy. You don't have to have the understanding and so forth that it takes to drive a car that way. And I think that there's a little bit lost in the whole thing.
Yeah, totally
And you're
agree.
just shifting it with paddles. I know it's faster. I know it's safer. I know all the reasons why we've done it. I was there at Audi when we developed it. I get it.
Perfect.
I get it. But there's something that I appreciate about it. And watching them, we were talking at lunch about, some of the stuff for those, those Ford Cup cars going to Le Mans. And, watching those big, crazy, heavy Mustangs be wide open throttle for, for 30 seconds in between the chicanes and so forth. It's cool. I mean, there's something that's very cool about that. And there's something that's very kind of transcendent over time that still exists, and it makes me happy.
It feels like a very modern manual car, even without the auto blip factored in. Like I could have gone away with just pure heel toe, anyways. But
you're just so talented.
Well, no, that's just how I grew up. Like, dude, literally,
he is. Let him not be too humble.
We try hard.
Try hard. Not be too humble here. But I've not met many young men his age that have all of the skills that he has.
Oh, absolutely.
And not only in his analysis of the cars and so forth, and understanding about how the chassis are working, how to shift them, how to drive them, how to understand the power band, and all this other stuff. I think a lot of it came from his Mazda time, where he had very little to work with. Yeah. And the whole idea was to keep the throttle pinned at all times, no matter what.
Yeah.
And use the momentum. And I think it was a great teacher for him.
Yeah.
And gave him a lot of skills that keep going. I mean, I'm really hopeful, for Britt's future, with Ford here and the stuff that he's going to be doing. Sure. And I hope they end up,
we'll see.
I hope they end up sobering up.
Well, we talked about that during his podcast.
Putting you in the hypercar, man.
We're trying to win.
That's what it needs.
Yeah, okay. America.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. We will definitely be doing a part 2. Thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for talking for 2 minutes today.
No. I love you. I love your guys' work. It's an honor to bring Brad Kettler on this show because this is a
fun.
gift to the world.
I love stuff like this, and I know there's some people who are going to say, "What the hell is he talking about that for?" But you know what? No. I don't care.
If you know.
Sure.
That's all you have to say.
I love history, and I love, again, if I can contribute a little bit to,
that's how I see
to
it,
some history stuff, then those things are important because they get lost pretty quick. And
yes, they do.
There's some people inside Yost Racing, and so forth in Germany that I've said vocally out before that, man, a couple of these guys need to do an oral history.
Yeah,
there's some of these guys
there. That's kind of the purpose of trying to document a lot of this too.
That did Le Mans 40 times. I mean,
jeez,
holy hell! I mean, these people have something to share with you.
Sure.
And a couple of the old farts there that I worked with on and off that were just fascinating.
I'm surprised this SD card hasn't filled up yet. It's at 1:47 on this sucker. I mathed it out to 120 minutes. Or no,
okay.
sorry, 75 minutes. So we're somehow getting the glory pass here.
Okay. All right. Well, very good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. It's really cool to
talk
to
come out to
some
your
fellow
turf next.
fellow gearheads and stuff. Yeah, let's do another one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Come out and see my shabby eclectic collection of buildings and cars. And
I need
things.
to see Buttercup.
I love that.
You need to see Buttercup. Yeah. And right now we've got 2 R8 LMP cars in the shop that are both getting quite a bit of work right now.
Yeah, we'll swing by.
And there's a lot to look at there. And got a GT40 replica we're working on, a couple Cobras, an MGA. We're building an engine for a Trans Am, for a 57 Thunderbird. I mean, we're all over the map.
Yeah.
So
can't wait to check it out.
Doing all kinds of things.
Well, nonetheless, thank you, Britt. And of course, thank you, Brett. We'll see y'all next time.
All right. Thanks for having us, guys.
Dan, thanks for existing. That's right. I forgot that last part.
One of the things I'm
Thanks,
good
Dan.
at.
All right.
Thanks, Dan.
Awesome.
All right, fellas.